Okay, everybody, so now we're just going to sum up and wrap up. I'm going back to this uh, quote I grabbed from an article about what it's like to watch TV. You remember, I said way back when in this little presentation on TV that TV is kind of like radio, kind of like movies, but has properties of each, but is very special in its own way, particularly with things like live event viewing or almost live in the old days. Now very much live, or pretty close to it. And this is a statement by an acknowledged authority on media that TV content is dangerous, addresses the psyche on multiple levels, pacifying the psyche with lighthearted fare, etc. So just remember that we all watch a lot of hours of TV, and we have ever since we were kids with our little strollers or whatever it is, walkers plunked down in front of the TV, watching whatever. Then watching through childhood when we had more control, Nickelodeon and Disney, particularly shows and programs, and seeing all those ads directly aimed at kids to get them to influence the purchase decision when they would go with whoever's doing the family shopping and going on the cereal aisle to say, Mommy or Daddy, I want some Lucky Charms. Pretty devious stuff there, directing ads right at kids, right? So we said that TV is a monster. It's the king. It's the queen. It was the top advertising medium in terms of dollars for decades. It took over from everything. It just sucked the national dollars in, the local dollars in. It's the most persuasive medium. Sight, sound, motion. Don't need to use much imagination when you watch TV. It's there for you. It affects your emotions. Maybe not in quite the dramatic way the larger than life, movie going experience is, but nevertheless. So it's a monster. It's the biggest. And so we showed this at the beginning of the presentation. I wanted to show you a monster. I'm showing you this wild thing on the right there from the great famous book Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. You remember the kid on the left is Max. And I think kind of ruling the wild thing, it would appear, at least in his dream or his fantasy that he has in the book, when he's sent to bed without any dinner by his mom. He fantasizes these things while he's in his bedroom. I think one question here is, who is the real monster? Is it the medium? The medium is not the monster. Maybe the source, right, folks? Maybe the sources are the real. They're the ones that control the content. The medium doesn't really control the content. It enables certain kinds of content and maybe disables other kinds. But maybe the source is what needs to be looked at here. And here are all these things we showed demonstrating all the change going on with television, because of course internet digital advertising is now the king or the queen or the monster. It's the biggest, it's the fastest growing. Video on your mobile phone is the fastest growing medium in terms of viewership and in terms of ad dollars coming right after the viewership, because where the eyeballs go, the dollars go. So these are just some of the reasons that the television is in flux. And that's a flux. I put in the word flux and looked for images, and this is one of the ones I got. I guess this is supposed to be some universal solar system or something that's changing, in flux. That's what that means. It's like everything is bubbling away. Everything is kind of up in the air. It hasn't settled yet. It's in between. Okay, it's like a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, right, and then emerges as a butterfly. Well, nothing. We don't know what's emerged yet from all this, but it's the internet, it's TV, it's all this convergence, all kind of stirred up in this bubbling pot. It's in flux. The future. Well, guess what, guys? Your professor is not going to talk about the future. You are. So for the online class here, I want you to go to Blackboard, to groups. You can find your team. I think there are 4 of them. Seek out your teammates and set up hopefully a live discussion, a synchronous discussion. But if not, maybe you can do a Google Doc and share your thoughts. Each one come up with 5 predictions. What's ahead for television? Will there always be a big set in someone's living room? Will films and movie theaters go away and go to that big set? What is the future of television? Will we have it projected directly into our minds by some device implanted in our skulls? Who knows? All right, so share and then come up as a group with your final 5 predictions, and there's a place where each group can submit those on Blackboard. So think about the whole lecture and come up with 5 predictions for the future of television. Due before the next class, 3 things you learned and 1 or more things that are confusing. You're going to post your future predictions as a team, so pick one person from the team who will post the predictions. Okay? Now this is a biggie. I want you to watch the 1972 film The Network, which is about television. And there's some questions on Blackboard, but you're going to basically do a SMAMBER analysis of the film Network. There's a link which will enable you to watch the film for free. It's an amazing, brilliant work of art, this film. It has a lot to say about television, but who are the sources for the film, etc., etc. What is the message of the film? You're going to read Chapter 10, which will get us into social media and digital for our next lecture. Okay, folks. And there's a term paper project that will be launched in the next class. So here's our agenda for this whole lecture. What is TV? How is it different? What's the technology? How was it invented? Who invented it? Works over radio waves, works over cable. Then, in terms of the medium itself, basically kind of rolls everything over from radio, right? We talked about TV content. We looked at each decade, actually starting with Milton Berle, but then we went right to the 50s, 60s, 70s. We talked about special kind of new content, this live event coverage. We didn't talk too much about sports or McCarthy. Your book did talk about McCarthy, Eugene McCarthy, the McCarthy hearings in the Senate, where he was falsely accusing people in media and actors and in government of being communist sympathizers or members of the Communist Party. It was a big bunch of nonsense. Ruined a lot of people's lives. This very, I would say, sinful man. Joseph, not Eugene McCarthy, I'm so sorry, Joseph McCarthy, senator from Wisconsin. Anyway, we talked about live event coverage right up till George Floyd, and now everyone has a video camera. We talked about children's TV, which is kind of special niche. Talked about the business. We talked ratings, the conflict now, particularly between Nielsen and ComScore over how to do the ratings best. We looked at some of the key players and the fact that everybody is now launching streaming services. We attempted to sum up, and then you folks are figuring out the future. So here's, I'm going to stop here. There's a little piece of music about TV. Maybe not quite as wonderful as Radio Gaga performance, but it's pretty cool. And it's all about MTV.